Didn't anyone ever tell you? Didn't anyone ever say? Did you capture a vision of glory? She held out a hand today.
I think it's always good to have a synergy at all fronts, both economic and social fronts, to pursue or to position oneself to have a competitive advantage. I would want to look at it more of a collaboration, between developers because of the traditional problems associated with partnerships in Africa, for that matter, Ghana. We haven't developed ourselves a system to support partnerships very well yet. So, in as much as it would be a good idea to have developers merge or collaborate to be able to have a competitive advantage or to be able to have the capacity to access funding, it's also important to note that there are not well-established systems and infrastructure to support such partnerships in Ghana in particular, because of some personal experiences I have had with such partnerships. People have various values. As one believes in excellence, the other believes in something else. Whilst one believes in quality, the other believes in maximization of profit. So it's a bit of a dicey situation in Ghana, and for that matter, Africa. However, it will always be good to have companies merge so as to draw on that strength, synergy, to be able to have the necessary financial support to engage in development projects, real estate, construction, and related services. But my concern will be, first of all, is to have a strategic agenda that addresses some of these concerns. Number one, owners of indigenous companies in Ghana, property companies in Ghana, must be brought up to a certain level by way of capacity building, so they can appreciate, the core values of good corporate governance. All right?
Yes, sir.
That is one area. You also need the exposure. If you are just locked up in your corner somewhere and do not know what is happening in the rest of the world, it's difficult to appreciate what current best practices are. And therefore, there should be that strategic agenda that grows and develops the real estate enterprises in Ghana, by way of capacity building, by way of training. Through training, the people, owners, and stakeholders will appreciate the relevance of such measures. You see, there should be that deliberate strategy. You take people from the scratch, from the basis, grow them up, until they realize, or until the stage that they get to that understanding of the benefits of partnership. Otherwise, in no time, they'll be at court. In no time, they'll be drawing daggers at each other. You see?
Yeah.
So we need to develop that environment first. All right? Some people's business are family businesses, between their wives and themselves. Problems of management at that level is even a problem. Okay, so there should be that deliberate agenda, be able to compete against the heavyweights. These heavyweights are the foreign companies who have found themselves into the Ghanaian market and out-competing the local companies. That would be good. You see, eventually that will be the long-term solution. We will need it to be able to have that clout, that financial muscles, to be able to compete with these foreign companies that come in. Because you see, the foreign companies have gone through the stages we have gone through several years ago. We are now warming up into those phases. You know, in the past, the population of Ghana used to be just a handful. Today we are about over 25 million. I guess it's even 30 million. You know, and so some of the things that our foreign counterparts have gone through, we are now going through that process. And because they have a deliberate strategy, deliberate policy at addressing the very challenges we have, you know, they have various institutions that develop their local construction companies. Malaysia has a well-refined construction development industry board. They call it Building Construction Authority, BCA, that sees to the development of the construction industry in Malaysia. The development process takes them through all of these things we're talking about. Building the management capacity to undertake large, small, medium projects. All right? So they take them through the orientation process, you know, of good corporate governance. And so the domestic companies develop themselves, develop the necessary muscles to be able to access funding. You know, knowing very well that they cannot compromise on quality. They have well laid out infrastructure systems that support that growth. But what do we find in Ghana? We don't have the necessary systems that supports a deliberate attempt at growing and developing the construction industry in Ghana. There is no deliberate system. All right? And so, as a country, we need to be looking at some of these shortcomings and taking deliberate or making deliberate attempts at dealing with them. I've been advocating for the need to have a construction industry development authority. Yeah, that will ensure the growth and development of the sector. By these, local developers will be positioned to uphold the virtues of quality, which is key to sustainability. All right? They will have the capacity, they will have the financial muscles, they will have the requisite resources, all of these with the support of the Construction Industry Development Authority that will ensure that whatever you're doing in the property world, you are adhering to the appropriate protocols. If it is about environmental concerns, you're dealing with them. If it is about social issues, you're dealing with them. If it's about quality, you're dealing with them. If it's about equipment, you're using the right equipment. If it's about resources, you're using the right resources. If it's about accountability, you are accounting. All right? And you are in a good professional position all the time by way of making sure your legal requirements are always met. Here in Ghana, people don't even pay taxes. They go without notice. You know? All right? People don't have the appropriate licenses to practice. They are practicing. Masons are becoming professionals. They become architects, and they do that freely without any problems. You know, so we don't have the appropriate support institutional mechanism to support growth and development. That is our challenge. You know, but we can find a solution if only stakeholders, governments are all involved in that process. You see, this is not only a matter for the private people, it's a matter for everybody. The government must have the systems to support the growth and development agenda towards attracting the requisite financial resources by the local construction companies. Now there's the introduction of PPPs. Very good. But we still see these things as far away from us. Why? Because we hear it far away. You see, there's no deliberate attempt at bringing developers to understand the concept and its benefits. You see, there should be a lot of private sector engagement into PPPs. Here we are in Ghana, there are local developers in Ghana who can do some jobs, but government still prefers to engage with the foreign companies because they are already made. You see where the missing gap is? Because they are already made, it's easier, to use. I'm looking forward to seeing a deliberate attempt at preparing the local property development market. All right? I'm looking forward to that one. And one way that I'm sure that as a country we can achieve that one is to have a construction development, authority to champion holistically all the issues that confront the industry.
Didn't anyone ever say? Did you capture a vision of glory? She held out a hand today. It's reaching to the broken.
You can walk into a bank and attract a loan with goodwill, like my company who has built very goodwill for 20 years. All right. Presently in Ghana, we are the only local construction companies that I know of doing 15-story projects. We have built some credibility over the years. In other jurisdictions, this goodwill we have built can make you attract funding. But here in Ghana, it's not the case. The financial institutions will always want you to back whatever financial resources you require with equivalent amount of collateral. Not equivalent, but more value of collateral. If I am going to borrow $100,000 or $100 million, the bank will require collateral worth over $150 million to borrow, $100 million. How possible? You see, our financial institutions are not customer-centric. All right? In other jurisdictions, there is an excellent relationship between customers and financial institutions. Otherwise, developers and financial institutions, the banks will always be chasing you. Please come for loan, come for money. Are you all right? Do you need something? Do you need that? Do you need this? But in Ghana, we don't have that one. I see, a bit of resemblance of customer centricity, particularly from the new banks now. But the government-supported banks or the government-owned banks, are still not there, and they need to be up and running. They also need to understand the property market. You see, through innovative ways of lending or supporting the property developers. There can be collaborations. All right, there can be collaborations, joint ventures, sort of, where you will invest money in the property process, and then when it is sold, you have your share. You still remain as co-owners of that venture. These days I see a lot of financial institutions, the small ones, even attempting to co-own the properties you have, including vehicles. If you go to them for facilities, they tell you convert your vehicle in the joint names, for security. Maybe at the big level, you can stretch that, by having a department, to specifically manage that wing of property development. Okay, if the challenge is about raising collaterals, there should be a way. Others could get on the management boards of these companies. There can be a department set within the bank that addresses the gaps of the private people, in this case the developers. All right, That happens in other jurisdictions, so there is solely a business development department, that is established to specifically make sure that the businesses of the private people are okay. All right, whatever the challenges are in relation to the changing environmental situations, they find solutions collectively, respond to it, and move on. So if it is about inability to write good proposals, they will help you with that, service support. At the end of the day, we together remain in business, grow our businesses, and it leads to economic development, isn't it? Yeah, that is how I look at it.
Fantastic.
Customer centricity, banks being interested in what is happening and their readiness to respond to the environmental issues of the day. Here in Ghana, we have a serious situation of economic decline. Otherwise, the falling of the city, And so if you're going to borrow money now, the banks are skeptical. All right? Together, both the developer and the banks should have a strategy, And of course, we will expect that the big bank, which is the Bank of Ghana, should also be interested in making sure things work.